Hello and welcome to Daily Politics, reaching you from Trust TV here in Abuja. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy, and governance. My name is Suleiman Suleiman. APC Convention Eve, women and youths in the APC, and all of that. Barring any last-minute surprise, the APC will hold its long-awaited national convention in less than 48 hours. According to Nigeria's election laws and conventions, all campaign activities must end 24 hours before any election. This means that today is the last day of campaign for all APC aspirants. But was there really any campaign in the APC for this convention? First, the date of the convention was shifted 3 times. Then it was reported that the convention and the primary election will hold on the same day. Then Nigerians were told all of the leadership change in the party. And then again, we were told that there will be no leadership change. And today, the Daily Trust newspaper reported that governors have bowed to a list of aspirants handpicked by Mr. President himself, including, of course, for the position of national chairman of the party, Senator Abdullahi Adamu. The president also met with other chairmanship aspirants and reportedly ordered that the money they spent on their nomination forms be returned to them. In short, this has been a convention without campaign. Meanwhile, the opposition PDP held its own convention since last October, also without campaign. But for the first time, the PDP elected an actual young person to be their national youth leader. So tonight, we ask, is the ruling party finally ready to match the PDP in this election? Why are both parties insisting on consensus rather than elections? And what is the fate of youths in the APC? With me to discuss these issues are Mrs. Ibim Seminitari. Mrs. Seminitari was former managing director of the NDDC, that is the Niger Delta Development Commission. She's also a leading member of the APC. Also with me is Ms. Rinsola Abiola. Rinsola is the daughter of the late winner of the 1993 presidential election, Chief MKO Abiola. She was president of the APC Young Women Forum and now vying for the position of National Youth Leader. You're welcome to Daily Politics.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
But we'll take just a short break. When we return, we'll go right into it and bring you all the analysis and all the insights into what is going on with these 2 insiders. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV, and we're discussing issues around APC convention, and in particular, what hope that women and youths have going forward within this party. So, as you were saying, that some of the intro, you don't agree.
Well, I was just listening to you. I heard you say that Mr. President picked candidates on a list, and that is incorrect.
Okay.
That is incorrect. So that was the point that I was trying to make. I do know for a fact that the APC has said it's a level playing field and everyone is allowed to contest. There have been conversations and horse trading, which is typical in politics. People give and take. There have been considerations and conversations around agreeing on a consensus candidate or consensus candidates in some instances. The zones and states, across the geopolitical zones have come together to say, okay, we're zoning this position to this zone and that position to that zone. Within those zones, they have said, okay, state A will zone this position to your state and this position to your state. However, regardless even of the zoning arrangements, candidates who would like to still vie for positions have been allowed to purchase forms and indicate their interests accordingly.
But if you have... Okay.
So I'm saying that has happened, and when you say it's
handpicked.
It is handpicked by Mr. President, that may not be altogether correct.
Okay.
Also, to wonder if there have been campaigns, there have been campaigns.
Okay.
A lot of campaigning has gone on. Maybe people have not resorted to fisticuffs because we are one family, but people have been talking to other people.
Okay, so Ms. Rinsola, here we are talking about a unity list, that you have that for all the party. You've first of all zoned the various positions to various geopolitical zones in the country, and then you have a list of persons that are supposed to occupy these positions by consensus. Doesn't that rule out campaign?
Okay,
altogether?
so as Dr. Samanetiri said earlier, I'm an aspirant in this upcoming convention, running for the role of the National Youth Leader. And I've been campaigning, as have quite a number of other people running for various other positions. Now, consensus is not alien to democracy. And as she also rightly stated, yes, our governors may have people that they prefer to occupy certain positions, but then no one has been ordered to pull out of any race, and no one has been told that because a list is being worked on, then you have to jettison whatever it is that you're doing. So at the end of the day, it's your prerogative if you would like to go ahead, if you would like to pull out. We had the zoning done to regions just to ensure equity. Positions have to be distributed in an equitable manner so that there's a sense of belonging and every region is well represented. A party with a national outlook has to be careful to ensure that, all the regions are adequately represented at every level. So that's why the zoning was done. So at the time that forms were made available, micro-zoning had not been done. And micro-zoning, for those who may not be familiar with political parlance, is you've taken a set of a number of positions to a particular region, and then you now sit down and say this is going to a number of states. And as it is in any political institution or in any institution where you have a large number of people who have to agree on one issue with different interests at stake, there's been a lot of talk about microzoning in certain regions where it seems like the formula is still being contested. So a lot of aspirants are still in the race. Some have pulled out, perhaps they've heard from their leaders and they're not the preferred person for that particular role. It's a democracy, really. It's about freedom. We're all free to, go ahead. We're free to decide we're no longer going ahead. We're free to do whatever it is that we want to. So I would also agree with Doctor and say that the contest remains open. It is true that the president met with our governors last night and that a unity list is being worked on, but then nobody has been ordered to pull out of the race.
Well, even if nobody has been ordered to pull out of the race, but you have this situation where you call a list, a unity list. So that means that even if I want to contest and I'm not a member, I don't know myself to be part of that list, that means I'm anti-unity within the same party. That makes people to feel that it's a way of giving by one hand and taken by the other, because you have this position. For example, up to last night, there have been 7 people are contesting for the position of the APC national chairman. What's wrong with throwing the race open for people? Why consensus all the time?
I don't think.
Do you think we can build a democracy with consensus?
I don't think at all that the idea of a list, and this list, I don't know if everyone has seen it, but I'm sure that if it was a compulsory list, then everyone would have been handed the list and say this is all you must do. That hasn't happened. Now, have there been conversations amongst people? Yes. In every democracy, people have a conversation. It's about alignment of interests. So people might say, okay, you know what? Why don't I give you this and I take this? So people will discuss. That doesn't in any way preclude anyone else from contesting. And the good thing about democracy is that 24 hours is a long time. So you might get to the field, and someone else who you don't even think might emerge. The good thing about this is that Mr. President, as a father, has said, I'm father of all. He's had a conversation and has said, well, if you guys ask me, I would think it would be a good idea if you all came together and had an agreement. Having said that, it's up to the people to say, okay, maybe we'll concede this to you. Maybe we won't concede this to you. And he hasn't gone ahead, taking every position one after the other and saying you've got to have John here and you've got to have Amadou there and you've got to have,
but at least it's been said that
Ngozi here.
He said
he hasn't done that.
He has picked Senator Abdullahi Adamu to be chairman of the party. And
Quite frankly, I wasn't present when that happened. And, you know, my background is journalism, and I like facts are sacred for me. So since I wasn't present, I didn't hear it said. I would prefer not to lay credence to something I do not have sufficient.
What if it turns out to be true?
So it's true, but you know, like I said, I haven't been briefed accordingly, and I'm going to be at that convention, and I haven't been so briefed. So I think that generally speaking, what we have people having conversations naturally. Mr. President may say, you know, I think maybe John is very matured. Don't you guys think it might be a good idea? He places that on the table, and there are 10 people, and maybe 8 people say, you know, we think we agree with you. John may be mature. Yeah, maybe it's a good idea. 2 people may say, no, we don't agree. Yes, John may be mature, but Peter too can stand a chance. You know, the good thing that has happened in the APC is that as at today, all contestants, you know, I think only one contestant has withdrawn from the race. So from where I'm sitting, it's a process that can throw up anybody. Yeah. And you know, the great thing is that the 7 gentlemen on that list, any of them can be party chairman. Any of them.
Well spoken like a politician. But
I don't know about that.
Yes, our paper reported today, you know, talking about facts and journalism, our paper reported today 2 developments from yesterday. One, that the governors in their meeting with the president yesterday, you know, agreed to the choice of Abdullah Adamu as party chairman. Of course, they didn't come out to say that, but when newspapers report stories, they must have sources, and they must be sure of their sources before they do that. That's one. Secondly, also afterwards, you know, many governors said, okay, we have agreed on consensus, even as recently as in the last 30 minutes, the governor of Plateau State, who is also chairman Northern Governors Forum, was saying that we have a unity list, and that list is coming out on Saturday. That's 2 days from now. Where does that leave the other contestants? How do we build a democracy? Because the concern is not just about APC, frankly. It's also with PDP as well, because that's the process you are seeing throughout the political spectrum. We're in an election year, but very little election has been going on. Actual contest of ideas, contest of positions, clashes of ideologies, none of this has been going on. How good is this for Nigerian democracy, particularly for young people like yourself who probably have a different vision of the country?
So for those of us who are young, we are concerned about how zoning sometimes tends to not favor people in marginalized groups, young people, women. But at the same time, you know, I was still reading something on a group this morning, and someone was talking about how when Senator Osita Esunazo emerged as, I think, organizing secretary of the party, there was a contest, as opposed to the consensus that had been reached, and he won. So quite a number of people are determined that whatever it is, whatever the list says, whatever happens, they are going ahead to contest. And it still ties back to the points that we both made earlier. Yes, a unity list is being worked on, but nobody has been told that once this list is finished and you don't find your name on it, then you have to just jettison whatever it is you're working on, and you can't proceed with the contest. If you so choose to go ahead and, you know, remain on the ballot, and you want to see it, you know, to a logical conclusion and see, okay, oh, I believe I will be voted for, or I actually want to know how things will go and I'm going to stay and remain in this race, then it's your choice to make. And I'm talking about our democracy. I actually believe our democracy was really hard fought. And, you know, participation is key to sustaining it. And that's why I think that young people particularly should be actively involved in politics. And I know how tough the political terrain could be. I know how it is when certain decisions are made that nobody really seems to understand. But as young people, we also have to understand that we have to remain within that system, and we have to continue fighting for the kind of democracy that we want. So we have a number of young people who have been affected by the purported microzoning formula in their respective regions, who are still vying for the positions that they set out to vie for. And I think, well, that's a commendable trait. If you want to go ahead and you want to give it your all to the very last minute, then you're within your rights to do so. And I actually like the fact that our leaders have been understanding and I would say kind enough to make it very clear that, okay, we might be working on a consensus, but if you choose to proceed with, you know, seeking votes, canvassing for support, you know, talking to delegates, then it's absolutely up to you, and it's your prerogative to do that or to just abide by what the party has said. So again, that choice remains open for everyone.
Okay.
And if I may,
Yeah, go ahead.
add to this, and brilliant submission. Actually, one of the things that we tend to forget is that this is not an exclusive preserve, for instance, of us in Nigeria. We all follow very keenly the American elections,
Yes.
and we see people fight hard, and we see people at some point in the party say, for the sake of the party, we think you should collapse your interests. It happened between when the Democratic
Party
Party.
supremacy.
It happens all the time. You're watching American elections, and then Bernie Sanders says, you know what? He's worked so hard. Everybody loves Bernie Sanders. You see him going. He's almost neck to neck with Hillary. So they're quite close.
But the difference is
And then-
that
no, no,
follows
just
after
hang on.
an actual
Yeah,
context.
But I'm saying,
An actual contest.
Sometimes
primaries and
sometimes
primaries,
the
several
primaries
elections.
sometimes even before the primaries, people collapse interests. We've seen that happen. Before the primaries, Hillary collapsed her interest for Obama. So sometimes we say these things like it never happens elsewhere. And that is not, this is without prejudice to the point of saying contestation is part of democracy. Contestation as part of democracy also includes the right of people to say, for me to come and say, Rinsola, please, I know you're good for this. I would like you to back me because I really think I want to go this time. And Rinsola has a chance to say, no, or what am I getting in return? And we can have a conversation. And then she says, okay, I'll let you go this time, I'll go next time. It's a conversation that people can have. We mustn't always think that two people engaging in a conversation, or 10 people, is necessarily a negative thing. I think that is something to be commended.
Okay.
However, the biggest takeaway for me, and what I think is very great, is the fact that the party has not said to anyone, if you choose to go ahead, we'll fight you. That hasn't happened. And I think that that's something that is very good. That is progress, because it hasn't always been so in our country.
Yeah.
It hasn't always been so.
The PDP was?
It hasn't always been so, and I would prefer not to name names. But we've had times in the past when, for daring to go against the decision of the party, you were immediately a black lamb.
Yeah.
And everyone will gather, and there will be muscle, and there will be attacks, and it's almost like Armageddon has come.
Yeah.
That isn't happening. And I want to, kind of celebrate those who are saying, okay, there may be a unity list. I don't know if I'm on it or not, but whether I'm on it or not, I'm going ahead with the elections. I think that is great. Okay. And I think that delegates should have a choice in deciding if they want to go with that person or the other. So let's not, in my view, blow this out of proportion. Let's focus on the fact that what we're seeing is a deepening of our democracy and find ways to support that process so that we open up the space to more people.
But the worry really, Dr. Seminatari, is that the key positions within the party have been decided, within both parties in fact, have been decided by consensus rather than, and so on, rather than people actually go. It's not that consensus is anti-democracy, but democracy, but it shouldn't be the culture. Some people who fought for democracy, like you said, the culture. But let's go a bit more practical, Ms. Rinsola. What if on Saturday we get to the convention ground and you are sitting together with Dr. Seminatari as you are seated now, and then suddenly you hear either on the loudspeaker or a leaflet that you now have a unity list, and that unity list has been approved by the president, who is the father of the party, as Dr. Seminatari said earlier, and your name is not on that list, and you feel that you've not even been given the opportunity to at least demonstrate how much you can do, how much you can offer the party. You haven't been given that opportunity. How would it feel as a young politician?
Well, I would say that's a hypothetical situation as at this moment, and I cannot react to something that is yet to happen.
Okay.
So if that happens, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Hypotheticals are important in politics.
Well.
So isn't it? But let's go beyond that now, Doctor. The election is dominated. The candidates are dominated largely by older men. everywhere. You know, so what does that mean for the position of women within the party, particularly as a ruling party, trying to set example?
I have to admit, and I'm not even going to mince words, that is distressing. It is. And that, what makes it distressing? Because I guess you would say, did anyone stop the women? But isn't that why we talked about the gender bill, where we said, can we reserve at least 35% of positions in the party for women? And people said, why are you asking? Are you asking for tokenism? And I said, if you're able to zone because of equity, if you have federal character because of equity,
Yes.
if you're able to say, we're going to take people into schools and therefore have different cutoff points because of equity, why do we think that affirmative action should stop at that point? Because zoning is affirmative action.
Yes.
Federal character is affirmative action.
Yes, it is.
All of that is affirmative action.
Yes.
Why don't we think that affirmative action should go on when we... and I guess that the jury is yet to be out on that, even though the Senate has taken a decision. But these are the reasons some of us have continuously pushed. However, the breath of fresh air is that before now, you dare not, as a woman, contest for the post of National Youth Leader.
Okay.
You dare not.
So even the contest does not even start?
You dare
Okay.
not. And, you know, I'm trying very hard not to sound like I'm doing a campaign here, because I'm not. But I tell you the truth. One of the most beautiful things that happened to me during this contest was Cecilia Sola's name on the ballot.
Interesting.
I found it liberating. So, you know, again, it's about the process. Now, I don't know where the process will go. I don't know what the process will do. I don't know if she's going to get it. But I like the fact that she did. And that's, you know, that's a step. People may not understand how much of a big step that is. They won't understand how much of a dent that has made in the glass ceiling. They won't understand. But now, all the young women who've worked very hard in the party, whether it's the APC or the PDP or APGA or CPC or QZY, can say, you know what, there was a Rinsola who died.
So Rinsola is the end game to make a dent on the glass ceiling, or to break it?
The end game is to
shatter
break it, to shatter it, to make sure it no longer exists, to hold anybody back. Because it's really tough as a woman in politics, especially if you're young. We're looking at very dire figures when it comes to women's representation. I worked at the National Assembly in the 8th Assembly when Honorable Dogara was Speaker, and we had 22 women in the House of Reps. As at 2019, 11 were elected. That number reduced by half. And that's a number that was not even sufficient to start with. We've had the same number of women in the Senate since 2011 or thereabouts. It's not increasing. And I think this time we even went back up to that number because Senator Olujimi was returned by the courts. So like, it just gives you an idea into how dire the situation is for women in politics. We don't have a dearth of qualified women, but it's really tough for women to emerge. When I got my form, I had people who start making comments about how, oh, you women, if you like, sit at home and be asking for affirmative action. But you know, I had to point it out that, look, I'm not one to follow that kind of narrative with, because one, I'm as much a youth advocate as I am a gender advocate. I have a non-profit dedicated to youth and gender issues. Secondly, I've been at the forefront of calling for affirmative action for women in politics. I got my form for 2.5 million. My male counterparts paid 5 million. I believe that that concession should actually be granted to all young aspirants, irrespective of gender. But like, this is something that has been done to encourage women's participation. Yet, we need actual workable policies that will see to it that more women emerge as candidates and that women occupy more positions in decision-making structures. Same thing with young people. This administration has done excellently by passing the Not Too Young to Run bill into law. But for as long as we do not have a set percentage of positions that will be ceded to marginalized groups like youths and women, these are policies that are going to take a while to actually yield the kind of impact that we want them to. So at the party level, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. And I've spent my entire adult life really in youth advocacy. Started with youth activism. I did some youth council politics before I then joined the APC. Before then, I was very interested in the activities of the ACN and ANPP. I had candidates that I supported in both parties in my home state. And you know, since I joined the party, I was founding PRO of the All Progressives Youth Forum, the APYF. We started the APC Young Women Empowerment Forum. I was secretary, then later acting president. During my tenure, the forum expanded to about 26 states in Nigeria. When it comes to young people's mobilization, I've done a lot of work in that regard. So I've had a lot of people ask me, Risola, why are you running for a position that is meant to be for a man? And the thing is this, the term youth is gender neutral. It's a gender neutral term.
Absolutely.
And I have done a lot of work in youth mobilization and youth advocacy. In 2015, I was on the Presidential Campaign Council. I was on the youth committee. Because of my background in public relations and media, I also worked on the media subcommittee. So like, I've done a lot of work in youth advocacy. I've done a lot of work in mobilizing young people. When we had the party membership revalidation exercise last year, I sponsored a media campaign all over the Southwest, calling on women, young people to join the party. I had adverts out, billboards in strategic locations. Like, I'm always there engaging with young people. We've done empowerment programs for party members and stuff. So the question is, why should I now be told that because I'm female, despite all the work that I've done in youth advocacy and youth mobilization, it is a role I'm qualified for. My gender should not stop me. So I'm really hoping that come the next convention by 2026, inshallah, we have more young women vying for positions that people believe, oh, only young women are supposed to occupy, or that we have more women generally vying for positions that people think are traditionally the reserve of men. There is a lot more. The women's leader position is a very powerful one, depending on who occupies it. But there's a lot more that women can do within the political party system. And this is all that we're trying to say. If you're qualified for something, then vie for it. And I want us to get to a point where it becomes normal for a young woman to stand up and say, I want to be youth leader. It shouldn't be something that seems special, that seems out of place, because young women are youth too. And we're not confronting the young men. We're not saying move aside for us. Someone has asked me, oh, this position you're trying to take up, but look at it from the ward level to the local government, to the senatorial district, to the state, to the region. All our youth leaders are men. Nobody has said that is discriminatory to the young women within the party. So like, why should my aspiration be then seen as something, out of order? It is not. I'm a young person. I'm qualified to hold that position. And when it comes to credentials, I doubt even my most dedicated detractors cannot deny that I'm eminently qualified to hold that role.
Thank you. That's a speech for women and youths in general, but also a speech for a campaign speech.
Doing this, but I cannot.
It's a kind of
I cannot stop myself.
free campaign speech, but we don't mind, because
Forgive us.
Yeah, that's entirely fine. But this is where we come again to the difference between structures and aspirations between individuals within political parties and the broader political system. Rinsula has spoken very brilliantly and well, and made a case in addition to what you laid the ground for women and young people. But if you're going to make decisions based on consensuses, rather than being able to actually speak to people the way she's done now, and so on, where does that lead to? One. Secondly, shouldn't consensus as a method of electing make it even easier for women to get into positions? Why is it not happening?
I think you're
that way?
getting this whole consensus conversation wrong. Why do I say so?
Okay.
Consensus does not forbid campaigns. Even if you are suggested as a consensus candidate, you still must talk to the delegates. You still have to go to people. Consensus does not say, Tim, stop. Only John can go. Consensus says, Tim, we think that together, perhaps we could have John because we think John has the strength. What do you think? And Tim may say, I agree, or I still want to run. That's different from barring Tim from running. And I think it's important we get this conversation right so that we do not, as if we run away with the wrong views. That's one. Two, shouldn't consensus make it easier for women? Perhaps, because again, we should be able to sit around the table and say, can we cede this to this gender? Or can we cede that to that gender? It's possible. But again, these conversations, and that's why women talk about how many women do you have around the table? Because it may not even occur to them. It's still the old boys network to some extent. And this is not just in Nigeria. We which is why the U.S. still does not have a female president, even after Africa has been able
But
to
they have
one.
many senators, they
Which
have
is
many
why-
party
yeah,
leaders,
they
they
may
have
have.
many
But this is the very first
members.
time.
They have a
This
speaker,
is the
they have
very
vice
first
presidents,
time.
you know.
The very first time a U.S. woman is able
Because
to be vice president.
when people say that, they are saying that we should repeat the 200 years of
No, we're
American
not.
history in
No,
order
no,
to
no.
get to where
You
they
see,
are
the
now.
point I'm making,
That's yes.
The point I'm making is that clearly women are up against a lot, and it is across the world. That's the point I'm making. That the Old Boys Network is across the world. It's not just Nigeria, it's not just America. It is a problem. It is a problem that women through the ages have consistently said, can we break this? Can we include more people? Because you can't clap with one hand.
Yes.
Absolutely.
As long as you don't have enough women around the table, you're clapping with one hand. And you can't clap well.
Okay.
So
we
that's
can't
the
clap
point.
with one hand.
No,
Maybe
no,
we'll
no,
take
we
a short
can't.
break, and then when we return, we continue with the discussion. Thank you, viewers, for staying with us through this the first half of this program. So far, we've been looking at not just the APC convention, but how this works out for women and young people. When we return, we'll continue with the discussion. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV. If you're just joining us, you can follow us on all our social media platforms on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and of course, Twitter. We're discussing issues around women's participation within the APC, upcoming APC convention. I have with me two women who are insiders within the APC, of course. So just before we went on break, Ms. Rensula, we were talking, you said you got your form for 2.5 million.
Yes, I did.
That's a lot of money.
It is.
Even at 50%
Yes, it is.
Reduced rate.
Yes.
So how does the money as an issue, and money is important for elections everywhere
Yes, it
in the
is.
world. How does it affect the chances of not just women, but also young people?
Okay, so funding is a major challenge with those of us in marginalized groups, women, young people, people with disabilities. And political parties, they grant concessions, which is why I was able to pay 50%, for instance. And I mentioned earlier that it's something that should also be extended to young men who are vying for offices. But to be honest, finance is a serious challenge. But then also it depends on the position that's been aimed for. For instance, zonal positions, the cost of the form is 500,000, and then for women, 250, for people with disabilities, 250. So the position itself, the level at which that position is also determines the cost of the form. Then at the same time, I think political parties generally fix a certain fee at a certain level because they're trying to have a contest that's not too open. We understand that it's part of democracy for positions to be contested, but at the same time, if for instance we have 50 aspirants for one position, it could be quite a challenge making sense of the entire thing. So I think that's why they fix that fee. But for me as a youth advocate, 5 million naira is out of the reach of a lot of young people, if we're being honest. The economic situation, I think, when in the time of our parents, it was easier for them to put money together. They talk often about how once you're done with school, you have a job waiting for you, but that's not the reality for a lot of Nigerians now.
True.
And as you rightly noted, politics is expensive the world over, and it is even more expensive here because minus the official cost, like communication, like media, consultations also cost a lot of money for aspirants generally, especially if you're going for a mainstream position. And I believe a key solution to this that we need to explore is crowdfunding. People should learn to support aspirants that they believe have what it takes to deliver on the task ahead. Political parties will always try to set a certain bar, but people should also understand that for young people, for women, in politics, people with disabilities in politics, it's very expensive, especially if we're aspiring to elective posts, both within the party or, at the mainstream general elections. And Nigerians would really do well to support those candidates or those aspirants that they believe in. We haven't really built that culture of crowdfunding just yet. And in advanced democracies in the US, for instance, you'll find that people usually donate a lot to the campaigns of those that they support. So I think it's something that we might want to explore here. I was part of the Presidential Campaign Council in 2015, and I know that, because of the love for Baba Buhari, a lot of Nigerians were able to chip in. So at the same time, the way I'm saying that people should learn to support candidates, I would also say that as politicians, we should also strive to be known for something. So when we stand up and we say, oh, I want to run for this or I want to vie for this, it's easier to get support from the general population.
Thank you. But that's an interesting idea. Ms. Rinsola is suggesting that Nigerians pay for quality leaders, pay for good governance. How does that play out in a context such as ours, where people still take money in order to vote for a particular candidate or collect gifts in order to vote for particular, and particularly within conventions, money tends to be even more instructive in our politics during primaries and conventions than even the wider elections.
No. It's actually worse during the wider elections.
Okay.
And that's the point. This whole conversation around money and politics is a big conversation. I really can't add anything to what Rinsola said with regards to how to raise the funds. But every time Nigerians say, oh, why are you asking for so much money for this and that and that? But the problem is that as a people, the electorate themselves demand. So, and that's another conversation we can have. When you talk about corruption in office and you talk about a lot of things, when you demand money before you perform your civic duties, when you're willing to sell your vote, as it were, for a mess of pottage, then you cannot demand accountability. So we really need to, it's also about our socialization, how do we begin to, and I think that is gradually going to change. I do not think 2023 elections will be business as usual. I think Nigerians pretty much are going to, there's a lot of awareness creation, a lot of political awareness. The young people are looking like they're determined to change a bit of the narrative. Some of them appear to be worse than their fathers. A few of them are good, are better. But clearly what I think is that this country is gradually growing to the point where money may not win elections as before. I mean, it may still play a role, but I think that we might see some disruptions.
Except maybe in party primaries, where all you need to do is to, give as much money.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think so.
Okay.
I really don't think so.
There are people who spend money and still don't get the ticket.
Yeah,
I was going to ask that sometimes you have this situation where people accuse, particularly NGOs, people who are interested in promoting women and youth, they say, okay, when women and youth are promoted and they get to the position, instead of opening the door for other people to also get in, they raise the bar even further. Does that happen? Or in particular, Ms. Rinsola, what's your idea about how to attract more young people into the APC, going forward?
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, during the party registration and revalidation exercise, I did a lot of media work promoting the party, calling on young people to join. I've actually got a lot of good feedback. I've also been part of activities within the party, selling the party to young people. We have this National Youth Lobby Committee, and I'm part of the Southwest Caucus. And we recently had the Progressive Youth Festival in Oyo, where we had young people gather from all over the Southwest and Kwara, and we're talking to them about the need to be, truly progressive in thoughts and in deeds and support young progressives at the polls. And we had similar events, in other regions of the country. So I've always been part of that effort to get more young people into the political system. And part of what we've been able to do with our efforts is in Ondo State, for instance, there are about 1,300 officials within the party system from ward level up until the state leadership who are below the age of 35.
Interesting.
Yes, it's as a result of the advocacy that was done there. And Babajide Akeredolu, the governor's son, is also doing a lot of work with youth mainstreaming in Ondo State. So we have a lot of them, even in the government, decision-making positions in that government, because they've been very deliberate about youth mainstreaming and about youth inclusion. So in Oyo, also, we were able to get a number of young people emerge as party officials. And that's also a feat that we've been able to replicate across states. Then with the Young Women's Forum, while I was acting president, I was also able to get a number of young women. In 2019, we were able to secure appointments for a handful of young women, and others were placed either with people in government or within the party structure in their respective states, because I believe that mentorship is also key. And if we're going to close that gap, we're talking about the level of representation. Women are severely underrepresented in elected positions. We have just about 40 women in state houses of assembly in the 36 states. There are lots of states with no woman at all in the state legislature. So if we're going to close that gap, that interest has to be cultivated right from when our women are young. And that's why I'm very particular about young women's mainstreaming and young women's political advocacy, political literacy, civic education. And it's not easy because there's a lot of social conditioning that has to be overcome. A lot of young women just don't think that politics is something that they're meant to do. And that's why I'm really hoping, let me not go into another campaign speech.
Okay,
but,
that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'll just okay, look, so the PDP has a 25-year-old youth leader, like you rightly mentioned. And it's an attempt to seem like the party for young people. We're in Women's Month. On the 1st of March, earlier this month, the National Assembly, threw out bills seeking to ensure greater inclusion for women. Women's groups stood up and said no, and now those bills are being reconsidered. And we have, for the first time in the history of our country, we have a woman who is well within the youth age group, who has a track record of youth mobilization within the party and outside of it. I work in politics, I work in civil society. There is no youth space. I've been a member of the advisory board of the World Youth Movement for Democracy, who is now vying for the position of the national youth leader. At a time when women all over the world are calling for an end, break the bias, Nigerian women are saying that we need to be better represented in government. It is a progressive choice that the party would make if I emerged as youth leader. But, you've been talking about zoning and all other such things. And, there are a number of considerations that a number of young people have. And even apart from me, there are other young people vying for other positions within the party structure who are also concerned about this. But we're thankful that our leaders haven't said, oh, if we do this, then you can't run. So at the end of the day, it's still up to everybody to decide whether they'll be going ahead or not. But I just believe this is actually a chance for the party to burnish our progressive credentials. We can't allow the opposition to position as a party that really has the best interests of young people at heart. You elect a female youth leader with the experience, with the track record, who can actually get the job done. It nullifies whatever the PDP may have done with their 25-year-old youth leader. And Abba is my brother, by the way. Okay. So I'm just saying, we need to make the right choices going into an election year that is going to be as hotly contested as 2023 is shaping up to be.
Thank you. If things turn out well, during the doctor, if things turn out well during on Saturday, and we have Ms. Rensola to pair Abba, in the PDP. Well, we don't know who, according to you, but according to us in the newsroom, we know that most likely Abdoulaye Adamu. Do you expect that the PDP, the APC national chairman, will be a match for the PDP? Because the convention has only one use in an election year, isn't it? To win the election for the APC. Yes. How confident are you about that? Speaking more realistically.
I do not think that the winning of the election is one man's preserve.
Okay.
I don't think so. Regardless of who is party chairman. Winning an election is a collective assignment. And, I don't know why you said if Vinsola is paired Abba.
Because they'll be contesting to mobilize youth voters.
But the reality is that we do have the right credentials if she wins. So I think that it will be a collective effort. All of us, everyone will have their hands together to ensure that the party wins. The whole point of this convention is to pick a leadership that will unite the party, a leadership that would ensure that the party comes out stronger, a leadership that would ensure that the party is progressive, is moving forward. So I do not think, therefore, that leaders will emerge from this convention and we cannot win an election. No, I'm very certain that whatever happens and the leadership we choose on the 26th, the APC would be a stronger party. It would be a more united party. It would be a party that is definitely going to win the elections.
Well spoken like a politician, you know. Yeah, but the reality also is that there's a lot of underground disaffection, which you can detect by various factions within states, you know. Some very clear, others not so in the open yet. But as we go closer to the elections, they are going to come out. So what challenge do you think, Ms. Rinsola, lies ahead of the new National Working Committee, which, if all goes well for you, you're going to be a member of? You know? So what challenge lies ahead for you, and what are your plans in, you know,
well, as
tackling
you rightly pointed out, uniting the party would be a major priority, because, you know, a house divided against itself cannot stand. So it is in unity that we're able to secure victory. And I made a point earlier, back when this interview began, it's that in any organization where you have a large number of people, disagreements are bound to occur. It's how we resolve them that is key. So I'm actually quite hopeful. We've had a reconciliation committee set up for quite a while, that was apparently also headed by one of the leading contestants in this convention for the role of the chairman. So I'm very hopeful that however things go, we will be able to close ranks. And in our states where we have issues, we'll be able to work together to manage our differences and move forward. And of course, irreconcilable differences occur from time to time. It's why divorce is a thing. So, you know, freedom of association exists across board in political parties. Exactly. But I'm actually quite hopeful. You know, people keep asking, so what happens if certain interests are not preserved and they leave the party? I don't think there is any thing that could dent the party's stature so badly that would affect our standing as far as 2023 is concerned. I am fully confident, inshallah, that come 2023, we're not going to have, it's not going to be as tough as people think. We will win the election again, God willing, because I actually have a lot of faith in the quality of those who are rumored to be vying for the presidential ticket. Only one person has declared, Ashwaji has declared. The others are yet to. We've read a lot, we've heard a lot, but nobody has actually come out to say I'm vying for this. But, you know, all the names that we have heard are, you know, names that I know that push comes to shove, we're going to have a good array of options to choose from at the primaries, and the best person will emerge. So I have no doubt at all that whoever it is that emerges will be a sellable candidate and that will have a strong track record to sell to the Nigerian people. And this is an administration that has implemented the most aggressive infrastructural drive in our democratic history.
I think we will come to that. You know, when the time comes, when the primaries or the general elections are shut. When the general elections come, Papa will be discussing, not just with you, but with all of you. You know. Yeah. But then there's this issue. The thing is, you two have this politician's confidence. I have a journalist's skepticism, you know, as you know before.
You seem to forget that I'm a journalist.
You know, yes, and she too in the media. That's more interesting, you know. But the APC, you know, currently has a backlog of court cases.
Right.
A reconciliation meeting that has not, whose reports we have not actually been made public, you know. So people don't know precisely where that has headed, you know. So how all of this going to affect, you know, the primaries, which is the next thing after the convention, which the PDP, the opposition, because the very idea that the opposition is ahead in politics, you know, did the convention post selling nomination funds, and these are issues in politics in their own right.
Well, you know, first of all is that you say you haven't heard the result, the report of the reconciliation. You're not a member of the party.
No, not at all. Yes. But as a journalist, I'm interested in
You're
news.
Not a member of the party.
Yes.
The point is, if a family has a disagreement, they settle their matter as a family inside the house. All right? It is, by the time a family's problem is on the streets and they're settling it, and you're coming to settle it for them on the streets, then there's a problem.
Yeah.
So if a family is settling in-house, then let us deal with our matter in-house.
That's all right.
I think that the APC will resolve whatever the issues are. I think I agree with Rinsola that there's not going to be anything that will be so humongous that we cannot settle. I'm sure we can settle our differences.
Thank you.
Differences occur, but we can settle them.
Thank you very much. So, family issues, I grant that, but, you know, what's it called? family issues, yes, but the ruling party is not just a family. You know, the APC is not just a family, it's also a ruling party. Whatever happens to you will happen to many Nigerians, including me. But we'll have another day to discuss
What
that.
happens at the party is
It's not the
completely
same
different
thing
from
as
what happens in
Exactly.
government.
in government. We hope so. So, Rinsula, there's this question I must ask you.
Okay.
You know, because you are Abiola's daughter.
Yes, I am.
And not too many people are Abiola's daughter, you know, and not too many of them are in politics and sitting right before me now. Abiola won a presidential election in Nigeria. He never lived to be sworn into office. Are we expecting a presidential campaign at some time?
Nigeria is a very tough country. And, you know, funny enough, I'm more interested in the legislature than the executive, but everything is in Allah's hands. At the moment, I just want to be youth leader and serve my party. And so everything is in God's hands. It's God who decides how the journey of each person's life will go. So I really do not know what the future holds. Only Allah does.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Dr. Ibim Cemetery for coming on the show. Thank you to Ms.
Thank you.
Ursula
Thank
Abiola
you for
for
having
coming on
us.
the show. It's been quite interesting and friendly and journalistic, should I say, discussion. You know, family discussion as well. Exactly, from another perspective. Thank you also for staying with us, viewers. It's been nice having you. It's always because you come here every evening that we try to bring you the analysis, the issues in politics of the moment. We hope to have you again tomorrow when we bring you another edition of Daily Politics on Trust TV. I am Suleiman Suleiman. Good night.